The modern world loves speed. Cut it, glue it, force it, move on. Medieval builders didn't have that luxury, and honestly, they didn't want it. They bent wood the hard way, the right way. They took stubborn timber that wanted to split, twist and fail, and they turned it into curves so strong they're still holding shape centuries later. No factories, no laminates, no shortcuts, just water, heat, time, and, well, a ruthless understanding of how trees actually behave. Once you understand the medieval wood-bending bath, a lot of modern woodworking starts to look fragile. This mattered because medieval life ran on curved wood, barrels that didn't leak, ship ribs that survived storms, roof beams that held under snow, tool handles that didn't shatter when winter hit. Straight boards were easy, perfect curves were survival. Sometimes the difference between eating and starving, between floating and drowning, between living and freezing. This wasn't folk magic. It was applied material science long before the term existed. Why medieval builders knew wood was still alive. Medieval craftsmen understood something many modern builders forget the moment they unwrap kiln-dried lumber. Wood isn't dead. It's a living structure frozen in time. It's bundles of cellulose fibres held together by lignin, a natural binder that acts like glue. Cellulose gives strength. Lignin locks it in place. Heat and moisture weaken lignin just enough to let those fibres slide instead of snap. That's the key. Not cutting fibres, not fighting grain direction, persuading the internal structure to move together. Once you get that, the bending bath makes perfect sense. How the wood-bending bath actually worked. The bath itself was brutally simple. Long troughs carved from stone or built from thick planks sealed with pitch, filled with water, heated slowly over fire. Not boiling, not violent, controlled heat. The goal wasn't to cook the wood, it was to convince it. Boards were submerged for hours or even days, depending on thickness. Thin staves softened fast. Ship timbers took patience. Heat pushed moisture deep into the grain, loosening internal bonds evenly, not just on the surface. When a board came out of the bath, it didn't feel like wood anymore. It felt heavier, kind of rubber-like, willing. That's why, those medieval curves look so alive instead of, well, forced. They weren't carved into shape. They were coaxed there. Why does bending beat cutting curves every single time? Well, cutting curves across the grain just weakens the wood. Medieval builders, they learned that through failure, not from textbooks. A cut curve, it snaps under stress. But a bent curve, it spreads force along continuous fibres. That kind of strength, honestly, it just cannot be faked. Barrel staves really prove the point perfectly. Each stave curves inward and holds under tension alone. No nails, no glue. If those curves were cut instead of bent, barrels would split under pressure. Food would spoil and trade, well, it would just collapse. Instead, softened boards were bent around forms while still warm, then locked in place as they cooled and dried. The same logic applied to bows, sled runners, wheel rims, chair backs, roof braces, and ship ribs. Bent wood absorbs shock. It flexes instead of breaking. That mattered deeply in cold climates where brittle materials fail fast. Medieval builders didn't have stress charts. They had broken tools and harsh winters. The bath survived because it worked. Why forms mattered as much as the bath. The bath softened the wood. The form decided its future. Forms were carved from stone, packed earth, or stacked planks shaped to the desired curve. Once a board came out of the bath, speed mattered. The clock was ticking. As the wood cooled, lignin stiffened again. Miss that window and the board fought back. Boards were clamped, wedged, or roped tightly into place. Some builders bent gradually over days. Others forced sharper curves in a single session. The deeper the soak, the more aggressive the bend could be. Experience decided everything. Go too fast and the wood split internally. Go too slow and it set wrong. Once bent, the board stayed locked in place until fully dry. Sometimes weeks. Removing it early meant springback and failure. Medieval builders accounted for this by overbending slightly, knowing the wood would relax just enough. That's not guesswork. That's prediction built on repetition. Why hot water often beats steam. Steam bending gets all the attention today, but medieval baths often did a better job, especially for thick stock. Steam heats surfaces quickly but struggles to penetrate deeply without pressure. Hot water baths allowed heat and moisture to soak evenly through the entire board. That reduced internal stress, which is why some medieval timbers show almost no microfracturing even after centuries. In colder regions, builders dropped hot stones or ashes into the bath to maintain temperature. In warmer climates, solar-heated water sometimes did the job. The method adapted to environment, but the principle never changed. This was never one-size-fits-all. It was tuned to material, climate, and purpose every single time. Where this technique quietly shaped history. Anywhere curved wood mattered, the bending bath followed. Ships relied on it. Without bent ribs, hulls don't survive waves. Land-based builders used it for arches, snow-load-resistant roofs, sleds, wheels and wagons. Agricultural tools benefited too. Bent handles absorb shock and reduce fatigue. That matters when survival depends on your body lasting through winter. There's a reason medieval tools feel balanced in the hand. That balance was engineered. Even much later, during World War II, similar principles were rediscovered when metal shortages forced shipyards and aircraft factories back to laminated and bent wood components. The physics hadn't changed, only the urgency had. Old methods don't disappear because they stop working. They disappear because they stop being convenient. How this knowledge applies right now. This isn't museum trivia. This is usable knowledge. If you're building a small cabin, bent roof braces distribute snow load better than straight ones. Soak green or air-dried wood in hot water for several hours. Bend it over a simple jig. Let it dry completely before installation. You'll get a stronger structure with less material. For tool handles, a gentle bend improves ergonomics and strength. Heat water close to boiling. Submerge the handle blank, bend slowly, Clamp until dry. No glue. Continuous grain. Less fatigue. Less breakage. Survival shelters benefit too. Bent poles create stronger frames using fewer resources. That really matters when exposure kills fast and materials are limited. Furniture makers can learn from this as well. Chairs often fail at joints. Bent backs reduce joint stress. Medieval builders solved that problem centuries ago. The materials are simple. The patience is the price. Why medieval builders trusted this with their lives? When a barrel leaks, food spoils. When a ship rib fails, people drown. When a roof collapses under snow, families die. Medieval builders didn't romanticize technique, they trusted what survived. The wood-bending bath delivered repeatable results with minimal resources. Fire, water, time. Knowledge passed hand to hand. This wasn't innovation for novelty's sake, it was refinement through consequence. Modern builders chase speed, medieval builders chased reliability. That difference explains a lot. What this reveals about medieval intelligence is, well, honestly, pretty remarkable. There's a quiet arrogance in assuming ancient people were just guessing their way through problems. They weren't. In fact, they were running long-term experiments with, brutal feedback loops. Methods that failed simply vanished. Methods that worked became tradition. The bending bath, for example, combines material science, thermal control, and structural engineering, without any equations, just observation, sharpened by survival. That's not primitive. That's disciplined. If you care about history that actually teaches something useful, this is the kind of knowledge worth preserving. Techniques that don't just explain the past, but actually improve how we build, adapt, and endure. If this kind of deep, practical history is why you're here, make sure you subscribe to Old World Prep. And hey, share this with someone who still thinks Old World methods were inferior. Keep these techniques alive, because knowledge that survives centuries is worth more than trends that won't last a decade.